Or to die. Welcome back to another episode of Wander and Wonder. How are you now? It's a little bit windy today, so hopefully that's not an issue. Been doing some audio work to, EQ it out, so hopefully I can do that and you won't hear that low rumble. Just also going to try to aim it properly. Anyways, I'm going to talk about a few things today. I was thinking about the concept of smoking, quite a bit. How it is humanity came to understand that they could use fire to consume a substance, right in their hand. It's an often used argument that cigarette smokers, have, or not necessarily an argument, but it's a colloquialism. The whole idea of the man with the cigarette is just so scary because he's harnessed the power of a sorry, there's somebody here. Because he's harnessed the power of fire and he just holds it in his hands, like right in front of you. So sometimes people use it as a crutch too. Like you'll notice, I feel like in big cities, people who are walking past you, just person to person, human to human, they'll take a drag of their cigarette like just as they pass you, and it's like because they just want to show you that, like, and sometimes it's unconscious, but it's like a protective thing, just like a cat turns sideways, an anxious human being, fearful human being will take a puff of that cigarette just before they pass you. I like to think that humans in passing, we see each other and we're like two spirits just meeting, we're in bodies, but always remember the experience outside the body, the memories that everybody has, whether experienced by their person or hereditary. And when you walk by somebody in the street, you never know what they've been through. You can get a pretty good idea sometimes, sure. Anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of smoking, just in general, and like imagine, like, in the beginning, there were probably fires caused naturally, maybe lightning struck a tree, and all of a sudden people were like, oh my goodness, like, this really hurts, like, this is a powerful weapon. Maybe there were like birds in the tree, and they just got cooked totally. And people are like, oh, there's like a dead bird. We eat birds, nice. And they like grab this bird and it's like fully cooked. And they're like, oh man, like this is like even easier to digest. Like, so I don't know if it tasted better at first or if that was something that, we came to understand in our palate. Because there are some people that say that like raw meat does taste better if it's natural, like not factory farmed or whatever, if it's grass fed, etc., etc. Grassroots, not astroturfed meat. Like the vegan astroturf meat, like that concept is like Impossible Whopper. It's like this is not a grassroots movement anymore. Like this is getting really strange. Defy logic. That was like a Lil Nas X ad with Elton John or something. Defy logic. Not that I think logic is the highest of highs, but it's up there. Certainly a virtue. Anyway, so people are like, oh my god, like there's like this forest on fire, and when you go into this like one certain area, you just start seeing shit, or you just start feeling different. And, some smoke hurt, and they're like, oh. But they probably, I just imagine them going through a field of, wild tobacco on fire, or wild cannabis on fire. It's absurd. So I think about practitioners of, as you say, shamanism is like one way to put it. Witch doctor style things. Often these people had their natural place in the world, and they used the smoke. They understood the spirit of the smoke, and it wasn't as though the spirit had control over them. They had dominion over themselves, and the spirit, although it did have to be appeased, to be allied, it would help them out, perform tasks. There were many shamans that simply used drumming or just meditation and humming, didn't use any drugs at all or anything like that. But it's interesting to think about like how we came to smoke things, how we came to hold fire in our hands, and why it's become so useful to us. In a natural environment, as a human being, and you're just tossed out there, you really don't have open access to fire. You have to rub two sticks together type of thing, and unless you know how to do that, then you might have some trouble. So it's just some food for thought on that. There's another concept I was thinking about. It was like the concept of heads in jars. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I just think about us here. You're watching this on a screen. It's like a square thing. You really only see my head. And it's weird. Zoom calls and this whole idea, put in our heads from sci-fi stuff. Like, you look in the future, it's like, a projection of someone's face, and they're like, on the side of the wall, and they're like, how's it going? Or, it's like the leader. Or it's strange to feel as though like we can imitate real presence with faces in boxes. And if we are like not quite in tune, because I feel like you really know, like if you're there or not, but how deeply do you know, like if that person is immediately addressing you, or if you're kind of maybe you have some wires crossed and you think that you're like really a part of the conversation or not. I used to think about podcasts as like, you're like that, the listener is like the third guy in the room. The first guy and the second guy who are having a conversation, say it's like Joe Rogan, they're like actively having a conversation, it's like totally lit, as the kids say. And the listener is just like that third, like super stoned friend at the party that's like, oh shit, like, I don't know what to say, and they just like go kind of into their own head and they just like listen to what everybody else is saying. It's definitely a type of person, So listening to podcasts can be weird, and I feel like it's important to just listen to your own thoughts. This whole talking to the camera thing is still weird for me, but it's interesting because it is just, my own thoughts. Things flow faster than I can even say them, which I find very strange. So, yeah, this whole heads and boxes thing, like, there's a lot of focus on the head too. And when I first got into spirituality, I found a lot of things like, ascension programs. You think about like, the chakras, and you're stuck in the lower chakras, so you have to like ascend to the highest ones. You think about like, you have 7 chakras in the Eastern spiritual system. They're associated with like different parts of the spine. So at the top of the spine is like your pineal, your third eye, and then there's like your crown chakra through which energy will enter. So people are obsessed with like ascension. They're like, oh yeah, like I want to go to the highest level. And so they start like, applying intention in that way. And what I came to realize is that it's not so much about like achieving the highest chakra, like making energy move, from the root to the high, because that's like your body, like your root chakra is the lowest part of it, right? Like you gotta eat, you gotta sleep, there's a lot of like necessary things that your body needs, and that's how you fuel yourself. So people have a tendency to think, yeah, I fuel myself And then the energy rises. The energy rises. And when I get second sight or whatever, when my third eye is fully activated, my pineal gland is fully decalcified, man, I'll just get to see through time. I can see everything, be clairvoyant, and that's that. And it kind of has to do with people who are over intellectual sometimes as well. That's why I was saying maybe logic, maybe reason isn't the highest of highs. I don't think there's really much of a maybe in that. That's kind of what I believe at this point. But yeah, what I come to find is the 7 chakras, you take in energy from the root. But you also take, like I mentioned earlier, you also take in energy from the crown. And that is spiritual life force. It's hard to describe exactly what it is. People have tried to create units for everything, So Terrence McKenna, for example, I listened to a lot of him. He used the word novelty, and I ran with it, not necessarily to say that it's a book, but it's things have a certain sense of uniqueness to them. There's lots of dogs. This is gonna be sick. Yeah, so think about the idea of yourself. Maybe you go to a concert or something like that. Hello. And then it's that feeling that you get from afterwards, where you're just yes, that was so sick. And it's not necessarily something that's you didn't eat it, you didn't drink it. It was an experience. And every experience has a certain charge as well. We think about energy, it's electricity. So there's another dog. You think about energy, it's electricity. So you get it from food, you get it from water. You also get it from experience. Hello. Heidi. Hello. You also get it from experience. So to think about your crown chakra as the energy center through which you receive, and this is just another metaphysical system, right? This is another way somebody trying to describe what should feel inherent to us. We can live beyond our understanding when things become so commonplace. When we are living a healthy, balanced life, you don't really have to think about what to do anymore. The processes become automatic. But we live in a sick society, in my opinion. It's up to us to try to make it a better place. That's kind of what I try to do with these videos, is share what I've learned. People have told me that I have insight, and I don't necessarily always think I'm right, but I certainly like to think. And I think, it's something I'm put here to share. Sorry, that sentence didn't quite work out. Anyways, so yeah, you have the idea of energy from food, from water, and you have the idea of energy from experience, from novelty. And what ends up happening, and you can energize all the different centers. I'm not going to get into it fully because I just want to talk about the top and the bottom, and how it's not about ascension. It's about finding balance in the middle. It's about living in the physical and in the spiritual, because we, not to say that we're dualistic, because I think everything, all twos connect to the center, Vesica Pisces style, right? That's right where humanity is, between the spiritual and the physical. This is why you can imagine things. If I'm imagine a horse running on a beach, and you're oh yeah, it's boom, you kind of get that idea right away. But just as you can imagine things, you can act in the physical, and you can do them both at once. So you're a human being, you're in the center of the Vesica Pisces. It looks suspiciously like a vagina. You can just sit with that one, I don't know. It's pretty funny. It's true, but it could also be a penis from head on, with 2 balls. Okay, this is ridiculous. But yeah, so you want energy from both. and you want to meet in the middle. And your heart is, I think that's, people say, I know in my heart, that is ultimately, that overrides everything, overrides logic. Like, that's not to say that it's a purely emotional decision, but there's something inside us that knows, you know, and we have to trust that thing. We have to learn how to access that, like, ability to even to hear it through all the racket. That's why it's important to get solitude, go outside, you know, do things that are good for your body. And just to frame your life in a way that isn't harmful. I think the mindset's actually extremely important. Just how you are thinking throughout the day, because we are dualistic beings, and I think that the neglect of the spiritual aspect in our society is very much what's led to the imbalance. And so I think it's important. I think it's important to find, like, the spirit, you know, to listen, to let your thoughts, like, people always are like, oh, I'm no good at meditation, I don't want to do it. People meditate all the time and they don't even know it. Just like people do magic all the time. Like, they'll meditate sometimes just by watching something. Oh my goodness, that is an enormous bird. Are you okay, buddy? Like, you're huge. Can I like look closer at that? Oh wow. I don't know. I think that's a hawk. He's being nice and still now. Wow. I startled him. That's just what I mean. That's like the bell in the in the ring that, you know, that starts the fight, ends the fight. Like, that's the bell that brings you back. And like the meditation room, like, that's a quick brush with reality. Like that feeling of when you almost crash in a car and maybe you lose traction for a moment. You're like, oh, like, it takes you fully into the moment. You're no longer trapped up here, and I think that's ultimately the goal of meditation. That's what I was saying earlier. But it's like, don't resist your thoughts. Just understand what they are. Let them pass. And eventually you will find center. Eventually and people will see, like, oh, I'm bored. But I don't know. There's a certain curiosity. Ooh, there's a butterfly that just came by. There's a certain curiosity with boredom, you know? Like, sit there with it. Like, why am I bored? Like, my mind's finally stopped and now I'm bored. Like, just be there with it, you know? Just like, you see a hawk or you almost get in a crash, just like, feel that in the moment. Like, but then the more still you are, the less you are in your body, the more your perceptions, you know, they say the eyes are window to the soul. The more your perceptions open up, the more access you have with your ears to hear the subtle sounds. You can start to observe them, you know, left, right. Like, what is that? There's a bird over there. There's some traffic, like, way in the distance. There's another bird. But just simply by slowing down, we may find peace eventually, at least within ourselves. The world is a very chaotic place, or at least it seems like it is. Things have a tendency to fall towards chaos, but I don't think that's necessarily to say that there isn't a greater overarching order that we don't understand. And it's really humbling to not understand something, to just fully acknowledge that you're in over your head. And that's what existence is, you know. The nature of the mystery is not to be solved, but to remain mysterious. I don't know where I heard that, but that certainly stayed with me. You might have noticed these headphones. I was listening to some music walking around. As much as I do like to get into nature, and I like to listen to I listen to the conscious call. If I to take my headphones off, turn off the music because I don't feel like it. You know, that's what I do. It's like sometimes I like to drive in silence at the speed limit, because sometimes it's just nice. You know, and it's just such a beautiful day. Like I can literally just chill outside, and you know, not have to freeze. Like it's t-shirt weather. So, you know, listening to some music, and you can look up some studies on this, but there were some studies done on binaural beats, which are, you know, ostensibly like humming sounds with like a little bit of tremolo. Isochronic is more like the whoop whoop whoop, just like the single tremolo, but the binaural takes advantage of a natural function of the human ear, or it's like sound itself. There's one pitch in one ear and just a very slightly different pitch in the other ear, like 440 and then like 441 or 442, or like, you know, what it happens with the two varying pitches is that in the middle of your head where the sound waves meet, there's a phase pulse. Like you think about sound as this invisible like water, right? It's like two waves like crashing against each other, but there's constant flow, right? And it dissipates, it disappears with the moment. Like sound energy is so strange. It's very temporary. It's like and then it's gone. Whatever the source, you know. So this source is constant. It's like and the wave in the middle is also constant. So something inside the middle of your head occurs, and you know, you feel like this sort of vibration, almost like right in the center. People with hearing issues can't experience this. Like if they have one ear that's like off from the other, or they're deaf in one, it's like they'll have issues maybe with binaurals. But I guess it's not about necessarily hearing as it is the sound waves meeting. So it kind of depends on your issue. Well, anyways, there's been a lot of studies into the brain. I'm not going to say I'm an expert or anything like that, you know, but they've observed in the brain an energy which could be read at hertz. Like there's like a vibration to it. I think hertz is vibrations per minute. It might be vibrations per second. Oh man. Yeah, see, I'm in over my head with this stuff, but anyways, I know the range of human hearing can go down to about 20 hertz, and then it gets really obscure. And then it goes up to like 20,000 hertz. So I think it's per second. I think hertz is vibrations per second. So anyways, the brain can operate on a few different levels, you know. When you're fully asleep, fully resting, you're operating in like this delta brainwave state. It's like the slowest of all of them, you know. I'm not exactly sure, but it's early single digits, like maybe 4 hertz, and you're down there and you're sleeping, right? But sometimes your brain is active while you are asleep. Like you can experience dreams. Dreams are really trippy, and you know, the more you pay attention to them, the more you think about it in a day, the more you write them down, and like you'll experience it more. I don't know why, but I think a lot of people do dream every night. It's a matter of not remembering, but also there's some issues with if you have a funky sleep schedule. Cannabis does affect the sleep schedule. I think so do a lot of drugs, things like that. You might not experience dreams or not remember them. I'm not a huge expert, but in that dream brainwave state, I think you actually are in theta. That's what they call it. I'm not exactly sure the numbers there. Maybe it's like between like 6 and 7 or something like that. Like, might be lower. But yeah, that's ostensibly the state that meditation practitioners are going for. You know, they find that certain, like that exact center between wakefulness and sleep, just theta, and they just stay exactly there. They try to focus like complete. You know, it's quite fascinating. You know, to experience transcendence, you have to get your brain in like a very, very specific way. And yeah, I mean, more power to them. Anyways, there's also alpha brainwave state, which is like low functioning, like you're awake, maybe you're going on a really peaceful walk or something like that. Like, there's beta, which is like more active. You know, you think about like you're playing sports, or you know, you're cooking a lot of things and like paying attention to a lot of times. And then there's gamma, which is like an ecstasy, you know, a rapture, like something inside is just going off. Like maybe that gamma brainwave state is also a way to access spiritual energy. You think about going to a concert, and yeah, you are like in rapture. Like if you're dancing and you're singing along and you're yelling and just having a real time. That's why people need to get loosened up so much too. Like that's why concerts, in a lot of ways, are places where people will experiment with different plants, different fungus, like different chemicals sometimes, because that's the modern world that we're in. I don't know. I don't like to comment too much on it, you know, because people are free to do what they want to do, and I'm not going to say that we don't have dominion over these things. In the Bible, it does say that we have dominion over plants, animals, you know, etc. So, yeah, if you want to do it, like, go ahead. A little deeper into this forest here. There's people on top of the hill. It's a nice hill. Yeah, so gamma and hyper gamma brainwave states are like the high, like, you know, you're gonna have to look this up, or maybe I can include like a picture or something like that. That'd be really sick. But hyper gamma, you're looking at like 40 hertz plus, like maybe 30 hertz plus, and some more. It's a different type of spiritual activity which occurs in hyper gamma, and it's really, really interesting to think of like these spiritual energy centers, like opening them, like where we receive energy. That's just what people talk about. You know, people call it source. And, you know, think about it. Like, everything you eat had to grow. It was alive. Whether fruit or animal or vegetable, fungus, like everything, it was alive in order to grow. And if it wasn't, it wouldn't give you nutrition. So you and yourself can be consumed. You will be consumed by the earth. You know, I hear embalming is really terrible for the earth, but you know, it's your funeral, literally. So, but we do return to the earth in the end, you know, one way or another. And our energy passes on. You know, there's the energy of the body, the material body, the skin, the heart, you know, like the organs themselves. But there is, in my opinion, something unseen which animates it. You know, it's just like this unseen energy that you get from going to a concert. The unseen energy that, you know, you get when you are, you know, you're startled. You see a hawk, when you are awestruck, you know, in a moment of complete bliss. Like I don't know if that's, I was thinking about in the Bible, like man cannot live off bread alone. So there's something in the body, in my opinion, the soul, the spirit, and when your body returns to the earth, your spirit does something else. It moves on. Maybe that's what heaven is. Maybe that's what hell is. If you're truly trapped in your mind and you haven't seen outside of it, or you don't have faith. I'm not talking about Christian faith necessarily, but that's the foundation on which our legal system, our idea of the soul, the human spirit, why every single person has the divine spark within them. That's just our way of looking at it, in the West, or it was. But I think it's important. The real thing is, atheists often say they don't believe in God. But I believe that we have a natural human drive for religion, toward religion. And unconsciously, these drives take place. And people end up, with their own prophets, their own gods, their own things in which they hold the highest esteem. And they don't even realize it. So the spirit does pass on somehow, some way. Just like I said before, the nature of the mystery is not to be solved, but to remain a mystery. So yeah, just remember, I'm a real human being, in the flesh. I actually am a person. Nobody on the screen is actually there talking specifically to you, unless they secretly are, or maybe they'll point it out. But just shout out to the 5 people that watch this, Joe, John, Mary. I don't know, that's probably it, honestly. If you do watch this, give me a comment and let me know what's up. Let's chill or something. It's cool to hang out with people. If you ever want to be a part of one of these videos, come for a walk, you definitely can. I don't think anyone does. Yeah, here we are, hey. Well, go outside. Find some solitude. There's a woodpecker. And, good luck on whatever it is you're trying to do. Remember to have a sense of humor about everything. The transcendence of humor, sometimes you can laugh and you don't even know why. There's something to that. Well, that's about everything for today, honestly. So take care. And until next time. Or to die.